Well, officials in one Wisconsin town are considering an ordinance about it, and it would cover verbal, physical, and also electronic threats.
The one thing that people have a concern about is the fact that they are going to be issuing tickets. The tickets could be anywhere from $50 to $1,000, it says in the ordinance.
So let's talk about this. With me, HLN legal analyst Joey Jackson, also Jody Blanco, anti-bullying expert and author of Please Stop Laughing at Me. Good to see you both. I've been thinking on where I stand in this. And Jody, this could get messy because considering if this person is a bully, the bully can then say that another child is bullying him or her. And how do you prove that? And the parents then have to pay? Or do you think it holds parents accountable?
I think the whole thing, while it's well-intentioned, is counterintuitive to what it seeks to achieve, because bullying itself on the surface seems like an act of cruelty, but most of the time it's someone acting out in a cry for help because there are issues going on at home or issues going on elsewhere. So what do? You punish the parents, then the parents get angry at their child who's bullying, they punish the child, the school punishes the child, and you have this cycle of accelerated punishment. And the issue that really needs to be addressed is never properly addressed. It's too punitive. There's nothing restorative about it. And yes, it's very messy.
Good point there. The CDC says that 20% of students in high school reported bullying, 15% online. That's just those who are willing to talk about it here. I can't imagine students really discuss it as much with their parents, too. Joey, several cities already kind of have similar ways of doing things, but is it legal or maybe constitutional to put the fine on the parents? I think what they want to do is bring the conversation into the household.
Yeah, I think that's much needed, Susan. Good afternoon to you and good afternoon, Jody. I think it's, certainly much needed. And here's my alternative view to what Jody speaks of, which is very valid. I understand. But we have to get our arms around this significant issue that's affecting so many children. And that's really, it's having a substantial impact on their lives. As to the illegality, briefly stated, there's no question that it's legal. And here's why. You can get penalized as a parent for contributing to the delinquency of a minor, right? In the event that you're encouraging, aiding, abetting a minor to do something that's unlawful. There are already statutes across the country that deal with the issue of a parent's responsibility for the intentional or malicious acts of their minors. There's statutes across the country that deal with minors doing things and the parents failing to supervise their behavior and activity. And so the issue is certainly, in my view, having looked at the statutes and the laws, it's not a constitutional one. It goes back to Jody's point of view, which it should be debated whether it's something that would actually solve the problem or otherwise make it worse. Now, that's a valid policy argument to have, but on the issue of its illegality, I think while it can be challenged, I think the laws will stand.
And Jody, you brought up a good point in terms of having trouble inside of the home. That usually is the case in terms of those bullying. They feel it at home. They therefore bring it to school. But do you think this financial fine would actually make that person or the parent at least fess up into, hey, maybe something is wrong at home and I need to get involved?
Well, that's a perspective, but I work in the school system. I travel around the nation's schools sharing my story to motivate change. And I work with bullied kids, parents, schools, administrators, all over the country and have for 20 years. And what I find consistently is that if you've got a bully who's chronically bullying, that, like I said, is a chronic cry for help, and slapping a fine on a parent, it may make them aware, but if it's got to get to that point first, we have a bigger issue with that. The schools have to work with the parents. They have to step up and communicate with parents that there is an issue with this child, and if the parents aren't responsive, they have to stay on top of it. So the problem with a fine is that no matter how you cut it, if you've got a parent with whom there's issues with a kid and that parent gets a fine, the person who's going to bear the brunt of that is the bully. And so if the bully gets punished by the parents, if the bully is getting punished by the schools, if the bully is the target of the parents of the victims, all this anger and all this punishment is coming at that bully who's already a troubled kid to begin with. Like I said, it's counterintuitive. I agree legally, and I agree that the intention is there, that we have to step up. But I don't know that this is necessarily the most convincing or compassionate or effective solution, though well-intentioned.
And Joey,
Susan,
final
just
word. I'm sure you've seen
one
it in
quick
your
thing.
case.
Yes, I think if we're talking about a discussion, I think the fine hits the mark in that regard. Here's why. Things start at home. Parenting, teaching, educating our children begins in the household. And if you have laws on the books that speaks to the issue of you're going to slap your dad and mom with a $100 fine, a $50 fine, we could get to talking about bullying, what's causing it, what's going on, you shouldn't do it. Deterrence is very valuable. Prevention is the best cure. And I think if we could begin the conversation and have disagreements about it, I think we could go a long way to eradicating the issue of bullying across America.
Excellent point. I wish I had more time. Psychologically,
jump in one
there
thing.
1 second left? Go ahead.
Yeah, I want to jump in with one thing. That's one thing when you're talking about overt bullying, like teasing, digital bullying, cyberbullying. But what about the worst kind of bullying? Exclusion. Not inviting someone to a party, not letting someone sit with them at lunch. How can you fine a parent for something their child
There are so many
doesn't do?
levels to this.
Talk to your
parents have
children
to
about
intervene.
what they should do, what they shouldn't do, how they could be inclusive, how they should
And
not bully
compassion.
other people.
Absolutely.
It is about the
That's right.
conversation.
We're in agreement there.
And
That's
I wish
right.
we could continue this. Joey
Time's
Jackson,
always the
Joey,
enemy.
Thank you.
Thanks, Susan. Take care,
Thank
Jody.
you both.
Thank you both.
Thank
A
you.
warning now.